Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today we are going to be getting into Anna O'Brien's little podcast that she's doing, and we're going to go through it. I have a few disclaimers and also a couple announcements before I start though. So first and foremost, I'm not going to talk as much about the lipodema as much. I understand a lot of you guys in my audience, you're extremely skeptical of everything involving that. I'm not super educated on that, so I'm not going to go after her for that. All I can really speak to is the obesity in and of itself, and if she does say anything that is ringing the E followed by the letter D alarm bells, I will point that out. I know that very well. I know those two things extremely well, and I'll offer my perspective on that. The announcements is basically I have thought a lot about my content and like kind of my eras and etc. And I just want to let you guys know, I think I'm gonna do probably a similar to Charlie XCX herself. I'll probably do like a remixed version of my bra era because winter kind of killed the momentum and it killed my bratness within. I feel like January is really about survival. So that's probably going to come back in February. And I think especially with February 10th coming, that's a special brat day. That is spring breaker day. I'm just kidding. But I'm going to have to do something for that day, especially because I am still going to be obese probably. I think it's going to take some time. So I'm thinking based on my assumptions, or not assumptions, based on my assessment, I may shift out of obesity. It'll probably be sometime in February or March, depending. It's going to be a minute. So, yeah. Even though I was almost out in the autumn, poofed out, here we are, right? But I am coming back down. And yeah, I was really burned out, honestly, from the autumn. So I think I have to just kind of survive. I think January is typically survival for all of us that are trying to lose weight in general. And it's also just, it's a challenging time for a lot of people. So again, I'm still here and I am glad to do these daily videos. I hope I can support you guys through your journeys this year and beyond. So anyways, January is basically going to be its own separate thing. We'll go back to Brat Remix February 1st or whatever, I think. Let me check right here. Oh, February 3rd. So we'll go back to that then. But for now, everything's blue, everything's cold. It's snowing. It snowed earlier. I have some tea. We're going to dive in. I'm snowed in. That's why I'm bundled up, because I know I'm going to sit here for a while listening and I'm going to be cold. But I'm probably just going to hit this podcast until it's done because I want to do this throughout January and I have time, especially today and tomorrow. So let's do it. So anyways, that's all my announcements. Let's go.
Welcome to the very...
Oh, lastly, sorry to cut off that amazing music. Lastly, I just want to say I do have stuff cooking for post-obesity. I have plans. There is a new era in the works. So just know that there's more to come in 2025. Okay.
First episode of the Medical Detectives Podcast, where each week we'll dive into the fascinating, mysterious, and sometimes downright bizarre world of medicine, told by the people who've lived it.
We're your hosts. I'm Anna O'Brien.
And I'm Dr. Nance, an orthopedic surgeon with a passion for uncovering disparities in medicine. I've built a platform on bringing awareness to misdiagnosis in women and sharing stories that can hopefully help people navigate the complicated world of medicine.
And I'm Anna. I'm a creator with my own medical journey, and while Dr. Nance has all of the experience of a doctor, I know what it's like to be a patient with my own medical mystery. And I'm here to ask the questions that you, the audience, are going to be wondering.
This show is all about sharing unique medical stories that are not just fascinating, but could also be helpful, whether you're a patient, a caregiver, or just someone who loves a good mystery.
Each week we'll have a guest on the show to share their personal medical story. and we'll unpack it together. But today, for the first episode, things are a little bit different.
That's right, Anna, because for this first episode, our guest is you.
Yep, I'm in the hot seat today. So if I sound just a little bit nervous, it's because I am. I'm representing you and your stories. And I also represent people who don't have a medical degree, who aren't going to know all of the lingo and might be a little confused along the way. I've experienced personally the highs and lows and frustrations of navigating the healthcare system, so to be the first person to kick this off kind of feels right.
Anna's story is the perfect way to kick things off. Her story is relatable, full of surprises, and I just feel so lucky she's decided to share it with us.
Okay, sorry, I don't have much to say. What I will say is there are a lot of people that do have genuine medical mysteries, and so I can see the idea behind it. I'm not going to shade them that much because I've worked on a podcast before, and when you're first starting, it's a little bit difficult to work with a script, and I can tell they're reading from a script. So yes, it's a little stilted, but I understand some of the process because I've done it before, and it can come across that way. So yeah.
I just feel lucky to have the opportunity to share it because I wish stories like this were available to me on my journey, and now they will be. My story is about a lot of different things. The stigma plus-size bodies face when receiving medical care, the body
Oh gosh, here we go.
positive movement,
That's why I'm here.
and also being a medical mystery and what that feels like. But that's just a few of the things we'll talk about. Mine is just one of the many stories we're going to be telling on this show, and I'm really excited to be doing this with you. We just hope that this show will give people and patients a place to be seen, to find community, and learn from these incredible stories on their own medical journey.
I'm sorry. I'm just
Absolutely.
listening to this and I'm thinking about how much hate. Like I don't know why, but I can feel the hatred of her from people when I'm listening to this. I can just hear it. And I feel like she's hearing it as she's doing her script. Because she's very, she gets a lot into this mode, which I've seen it. I haven't actually looked at her in a minute. But she does this a lot where she's very like, you know, she has this very strong F the haters vibe, which I can understand it. Again, I'm on hiatus from my first Brat era. I'm going back to Brat 2.0 in February, but I get it. I understand not caring what people think or whatever, but what is cringy to a lot of people is when you act like you don't care, but it's very clear that you do. And I feel like that's like a huge part of it, just kind of fuels the hatred. And I'm feeling that in her tone and how she's doing this.
So buckle up, because this first story sets the stage for everything to come. Anna, you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. Hello, Dr. Nance.
Hi, Anna. Welcome to the show.
I know. I'm a little nervous because on this first episode, it's me.
You know, I don't know any other podcast where the co-hosts actually interview the other co-host, so
I think it's fairly common.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a whirlwind. I think that it is important though because I think it makes sense as to why I'm here, right? Like obviously you make sense. You're a doctor. But why am I here? I ask that all the time.
Well, I'd actually love to start with the why. Can you share your intention of sharing your story?
Yeah, so my intention with all of this, and even when this came across my plate as something potentially to do, it really is that I've been on a really long journey, right? And I would say that in some ways I'm not even at the end yet. But every step I've taken forward has significantly improved my life. And for a really long time, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when I, share my story, I was afraid to take the first step because of a lot of the noise surrounding me. And I think if I can encourage just one person to take a step towards feeling better and whatever that means for them, because it is incredibly personal, then it will have been worth it. And I think that women are in a lot of ways built to be afraid of medicine and doctors and seeking health, and we're sold so many other solutions that
I don't know about that, but okay.
aren't really solutions, that I'm here to advocate and speak for the fact that there are doctors out there that care.
I'm just saying if that was true, then women wouldn't go to the doctor as much, but they tend to go more than men. So I don't agree with her. That's all I'm saying.
And it may just take some work to find them.
Well, that's a great way to start. So you mentioned that you started to notice kind of some changes in your body. When were you aware that your body was not the same as everyone else around you?
So the changes in my body really started to happen around puberty. I just started to gain weight, which was kind of unusual because I was always a really active kid. Like they used to call the church doors the Anna doors, because I was running in and out of them all the time, causing trouble. And I used to do this dance where I would move my feet really fast because I just had so much energy.
Okay, here's my thing. I wonder if she is going to actually touch upon the E followed by the letter D, because she has talked about it on her own channel. So I'm wondering where that's going to come into the conversation. I'm really, really, really wondering. I wonder if it will be completely omitted or if she's going to talk about it.
So it was puzzling to a lot of people, how was I gaining weight? And the first thing went to like, oh, she must be eating wrong, right? So I remember around that time when I started to gain weight that my mom took me to this really shady doctor in the middle of nowhere. And I remember even as a little kid being like, this place is sketch. And went in, there was like one of those little windows that they pulled open, and I looked inside, and the woman asked me like 3 questions. Not one of them was my age or my weight or anything like that. It was literally like, do you have a heart murmur? Do you have any of these other conditions, diabetes, I think? And this is like at 8 years old. Shut the door, took me in. This older man gave me a speech about why I was awful because I was overweight, and then he wrote me a prescription for what I now know was fen-phen. So at 8 years old, I started taking fen-phen, and wild.
Fen-phen is a stimulant that was a popular kind of diet drug in the 90s, but it had significant side effects, mainly cardiac problems. So it is no longer used.
Yeah, this is an issue that I have with the Ozempic craze as well. They're starting to push for kids to be taking it. I don't think it's good to interfere with growth in general on a physical level. Like when you're a child, your physical health and like metabolism and all that stuff is pretty peak. So if you're still gaining weight, the odds that you're eating too much is extremely high as a child, especially 8 years old. 8 years old. Which again, at that age, it tends to reflect more so on the parents, because your parents are the ones who are providing you the food, especially under the age of 10, especially. Like that is so young. So I don't think that is, I think that's a horrible thing. That's all I can say. I think that's awful. I don't think it's good for it to happen today. I don't think it's good for it to happen then. I've heard of people trying to do bariatric surgery on people who are not even fully grown. That stuff to me is insanity. Absolute insanity. Because you're going to interfere with growth if you're doing stuff that early. It's, to me, an overweight child is very clearly overeating. And that's about it. End of the discussion. Try to shift the diet around a bit. You know, I don't have children. I'm not going to tell people how to parent, but my view of it would be just try to shift around the diet. Kids will have to eat what you're eating, basically. It might be a fight, but as far as I'm aware of, there's plenty of arguments with the child when you're raising them. So it would just be one of those. and it's for the kids' own good. Like, you have to just, you know, not be getting a bunch of junk food at home and things like that, because it's too many calories. That's probably the issue for a child that's 8 years old. But other than that, I mean, their metabolism's very fast when you're growing. Like, your metabolism is fast, so you could probably lose it if you just stopped overeating. Most people, however, don't, and those overeating habits continue into adulthood. That's typically what happens, unfortunately.
Treat obesity.
Let's just say that that's, I mean, to look back at that now and
But to me, it's just kind of, it's that give it a pill solution mindset, which weight is always going to be holistic. There's always going to be a lot of different reasons why somebody's overweight. So you have to just kind of create a different type of environment where that's no longer going to occur. And for a child especially, you have a lot more control over a child's environment. So that's really my stance on it, and my view of it is just creating a less obesogenic environment for your child. And, and that's pretty basic stuff. But let's go ahead and continue.
even to have had to do some things on my journey because of that, because now what we know what fen-phen can do to the body, there were concerns about heart issues when I was pursuing other things down the road. So I don't know why that was okay. I don't know why it was so casual. I think I'm still coming to terms with why my parents thought that was okay to do. But regardless of it, I was put on that.
Yeah, it's because it was seen as an easy solution, which there isn't typically an easy solution to obesity, period. There has to be something addressed. It's not as difficult as when you're bigger. It's a lot worse, actually, to deal with. If you get to morbid and super morbid, it's much harder to deal with. But from an obese perspective, or even just overweight, it's not that hard, but it's not one thing. You can't just give somebody a pill and they're done. You can't do that. It's a holistic picture. So the child's not being active enough, the child is eating too much, the quality of the food is not good enough, and that can be a question. You honestly just do the best you can. And if you're trying, your child shouldn't be hugely huge, But what tends to happen is a lot of parents, they also have E followed by the letter D. And I've talked about how I think it's genetic, which a lot of people do. There is some evidence, especially for the restrictive side. I don't know why they don't test for the other side, but I don't think it's taken as seriously on the other side of the spectrum, which I do believe it's a spectrum. So, yeah, oftentimes parents have those issues, and they are passed down genetically through like a propensity towards it and through teaching the behavior to a child. And so a lot of times kids don't get better because parents aren't better. And it's basically impossible to get your child, like, I would say, honestly, I think it's probably almost impossible for you to get your child to lose weight if you're really big and overeating and binging and all that. You have to fix yourself as a parent. And then that will kind of trickle down, especially to a child that young. They're mostly mirroring what you're doing most of the time. Not always. This won't speak to every single person all the time, but it will speak to the vast majority of kids and families in this position. It usually is parents have the same issue and kids are learning to have the same issue. That's basically what happens for the most part.
And I lost some weight, but not really. And I just remember during that period of my life that every once in a while I would get to eat normal food. So my mom, I remember, threw everything away in the house, like had this big menagerie where like everything that, in my opinion at the time, tasted good was in the garbage. We were left with like brown rice, flavorless chicken, shredded wheat, and vegetables. That's it.
I
And I
tried.
remember, and I have this very vivid memory of when I was about, I want to say 10 or 11. I went to my friend Nikki S's house, and her mom made me a cheeseburger. And I remember sitting there eating that cheeseburger, being like, this is the best thing I've ever had in my entire life. This cheeseburger, wow. And this, like, cheese, it wasn't even probably that good of a
Yeah.
cheeseburger.
Sounds like she was really craving fat, which a lot of people in the 90s, they were very afraid of fat in the diet. Always remember, it is a toxic ritualistic mindset to blame a macro rather than overall caloric intake for your weight. So that was very much a thing at the time. It sounds like she needed fat to feel more satiated, and she wasn't getting enough at home. That's a problem. Because remember, it's the calories. That's really where the issue is. It's not exactly a macros. So, yeah, I feel for her there. I probably would have been hungry myself if I was just eating shredded wheat, brown rice, and chicken. That probably I would be starving. Honestly, I would probably feel like I was starving. But yeah, I mean, most people are going to need fat in their diet to feel full.
But because I'd eaten such terrible food for like a while.
Like we're talking In-N-Out cheeseburger or
Yeah, like it was probably like McDonald's cheeseburger, but I just remember.
Yeah, McDonald's isn't good. But again, there are better sources of fat.
Being like, oh my God. I was like, my life has forever changed. Like music played, lights flashed. Like it was like this.
When you've gone without a certain macro for a very long time, if you eat it again, it can feel euphoric, which, again, that was a huge part of my toxic ritualistic behavior. I would abstain from certain things. Like I did carbs a lot. Like I would abstain from carbs, and then I would eat them again, and I'd feel a sense of euphoria. And the same thing can happen with fat and that kind of stuff. So it creates a kind of roller coaster in the brain, and it does have to do with E followed by the letter D. So I guess even if she's not realizing that she's touching upon that, to me, this is the foundation of her problem with this aspect, because that sort of euphoric feeling, especially as a child, that would have been crazy for her to experience. And at such a foundational age, it's something that could easily continue, especially if she has a history of a lot of different diets, which remember, dieting is a part of B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. Dieting is a part of that equation. It is not just eating, huge amounts of food very quickly. It's also diets, tons of different ones, and also a fixation on body and issues with the image of it, okay? So there's 3 sides to it. And again, people don't take it as seriously a lot of the time. They don't understand. It's much more similar to the other kinds of E followed by the letter D. But on this channel, we acknowledge that it's similar, that it's all a spectrum. All of them do different variations of these different behaviors, these toxic ritualistic behaviors. And when most of the time you're being, then you're on B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. But there's still restrictive aspects which people don't ever acknowledge, but they do exist. Like I said, oftentimes I would take out certain macros. I would go vegan for a while, for example. Then the feeling of eating meat would be euphoric, especially if you go without it for like 3 weeks. So it can become a game. I need to talk about it a little bit more. I'm glad my bra era isn't totally over, because I want to make a comparison to a slot machine. It's kind of like when you're in B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D, it becomes this sort of slot machine of weight loss, where it's like, oh, it's like Am I going to get it this time? I don't know. Oh, gosh, I lost. I didn't win that one. I gained a bunch of weight. Or, oh, am I going to do it? Oh my gosh, I lost it. Look at that. Look at that. And it's a lot of times it's just water weight, but you're kind of still playing that game with yourself the whole time. So I think I definitely need to revisit that, and I need to do another video where I talk about that aspect of it, because I don't know if that's as prevalent in the other ones. You guys can let me know. A lot of you guys have a history with the other ones. Let me know if that's the case in those as well. But that kind of, you know, lightning caught in a bottle feeling, that's very prevalent. And I feel like her going through that at such a young age, it set her up to be in that E fall by the letter D. That's my perspective on what she's saying, and that is my basically explanation to her poor foundations in childhood for why she ended up really going deep into this. And I think she's still in it very hardcore, in my opinion. I really think she is.
This amazing thing, and I didn't die. There were no issues, and I just had a normal day. And I remember that up until that point, I had a really weird relationship between pleasing my parents and losing weight. Like, I felt every time I got on the scale that I was a little bit of a failure because I wasn't losing as quickly as they thought I should have been losing taking Fen-Phen. But I was starving and still very active. So what ended up happening?
Yeah, she wasn't getting an appropriate macro combo for herself. And remember that there are actual variations between people. Some people need more carbs, some people need less carbs, some people need more fat, some people need less fat, more protein, less protein. Like, you can tell depending on how hungry you are if you're not satisfied. And remember too, it can also vary throughout the year. It can vary throughout phases of your life. It can vary throughout phases of weight loss. I've told you guys a lot. There's a lot of times where I will have sugar, where I'm eating a lot of carbs, very high carb. For me, that has worked. And then there are other times, like this year, this January, where I'm really much more on meat and fat, and I'm not really having any candy or anything. I'm having like honey. I've been having a lot of honey, but it's still different than sugar because it goes through the body differently. It's just different. So I don't need, like, I haven't had any candy or anything, basically, since the new year. And I've gone through phases where I need it and when I don't. And it's like right now I'm just really wanting, like, more of those whole foods and that kind of stuff. Like, I'm wanting meat and potatoes. Like, I had that today. I had like a roast, or not a roast. I had like a steak stew. So I think personally for me, I think my hypothyroidism is getting better, which I honestly should do a health update. I really need to. But it's typically, I've noticed when my hypo is worse, I need more hyperpalatable foods. When it's better, then I need less. So it's been better. So it's like I have less now, you see? But I let myself flow through with the caloric realism holding me up behind, you know? So if I ever gain weight, I'm aware, like, oh, like in December, I ate a lot in December. I don't think I ate that much, but I did eat in December. But I know there's probably some weight gain, but not a lot. It was not dramatic this time. A lot of my weight gain in December was water, which happened also last year. So you have to always remember that caloric realism is king. If you have other hormone issues that affect swelling, or like if you have a cycle, for example, like you have your period or you're going through something like menopause, you have to understand that all that can affect fluid fluctuation too, and you just have to stay very grounded in your body and understand when it's water and when it's fat. That's very, very important. But yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and continue.
It was just kind of, bleak. And so I stopped, I would say in a little bit, I stopped being as active because I had no freaking energy. And my body started to change because
She needed more fat, that's all.
I wasn't the same active person I was before. And I started to put on weight instead of losing it. And I think at this point, a lot of the articles and stuff that came out about fen-phen, we all got off of it because it wasn't legal anymore.
See, what I don't like is she's not saying that she was eating more. That's where there's Delulu. That's where we get into E followed by the letter D territory. Like I tell you guys, my hypo was worse in December, so I was hungrier, so I ate more. My weight loss didn't mysteriously magically stop. My hypo got worse, I got hungrier, and I ate more. And I did need to have more sugar and things like that in December, as I was like extremely low dopamine in December, which was crazy. But then it got better. And now I'm like way better all of a sudden. Like not all of a sudden, but it just started getting better after the solstice and getting towards Christmas, and especially after I started to recover dramatically. And now I don't have those issues anymore. So it's like, I know a lot of people don't pay attention to things like that, but when you're hypo, you do have to pay attention to the season because it does affect you. But you also have to remember that you can work on your hypothyroidism and work to treat it and get better. And I have gotten better year over year. So I think you have to just always keep it physically based. I think that's the biggest thing that gets forgotten in these conversations. Just be honest, Anna. Say that you were eating more. Say that you were so hungry, so you ate more. That's what it was. And it's frustrating when people don't say that. And I notice the absence of it. Because I don't tell you guys I didn't eat more. I did eat more. And now I'm back on the deficit, and I have been for quite a while. So it's like, I'm not eating more now. I can tell you guys, it's not, I think that's a very important step in recovery, is being honest about if you're eating more, if you're not. You have to keep that realism, that especially caloric realism. Okay? Because I don't feel any kind of way that I stopped losing. I knew the swelling was coming. It happened last year. But it's like I was not actively losing in December anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I can say that to you guys. I can tell myself that. I can understand it. So I don't feel like my weight has become this mystical slot machine moment. Some of you guys like when I use tarot cards. It didn't become this Wheel of Fortune, okay? There was no Wheel of Fortune card around my weight. I understood it. No Wheel of Fortune reversed, okay? It wasn't mystical. It's very easy to explain. It's very easy to tell you guys. And people don't get as upset as you would think they would, because people understand. I mean, it's also Christmas time, right? Like there's a lot of stuff in December, seasonal factors that I tell you guys every year. And I've had year over year, the same thing, I tend to reach a new level towards March. Like last year, I got out of supermorbid obesity in March. This year, towards March, I'll probably get out of obesity, you see? So I don't know. There is something to it, is all I'm trying to say. But there's a method to my madness here. And I think it's always important to just be honest, regardless. Be honest about gaining, be honest about losing, period. That's it. Okay. Anyways, I think it's important in our personal lives too. And I can't blame her for anything she did as a child, but if she's still doing it to this day, where she's talking about it, she's not willing to admit it, that's a problem.
So basically, I gained a bunch of weight.
It wasn't magical weight gain. You ate a lot more, and then you gained weight. Okay. I corrected it for you.
And I kind of just accepted it. In my 20s, I moved on from my parents.
You accepted that you had this E followed by the letter D. You just ate and ate and ate. Let me translate it for you. Okay? You accepted, you felt that it was the way you are. You felt that you didn't owe anybody anything to do anything different. You use this as a coping mechanism for your anxieties, for trauma in your past, and you ate and ate and ate. Maybe you dieted a little, but you still ate a lot more. That's the translation. Okay, I can tell you what it was. I can tell you. That's what she means by, I just didn't care anymore. Okay, that's a more detailed description.
I moved into a really amazing group of friends, and I think that every friend group goes through this. I mean, I hope they still don't go through it, but back when I was in my 20s, everybody went through it, which was like the collective culture where girls got together and dieted together. So we did the thing that everybody seemed to do, which was join Weight Watchers, right? You know, we all got together, we'd go to our group meetings together, we would support each other, we'd share recipes, we'd weigh in, and honestly, I built my friendships around losing weight. And that's a really weird dynamic, right? Where that success.
So she did do the dieting thing. Okay. Telling you, you'd think I was looking at a crystal ball listening to this, just saying. She did the dieting thing. No, I'm not a fortune teller with her. I'm just somebody who has a lot of experience with this disorder. It's very obvious that she has it, in my opinion. I will just say that. No, I'm not a doctor, etc., but I am a survivor of it, and I know it very well. And she's given all the signs. As Taylor would say, which, by the way, another Swiftie. I will use the lyrics against them every time. As Taylor would say, she's giving so many signs. I gave so many signs. She's giving so many signs right now that she has it. Okay? That's all. Telling you. The Swiftie connection. Telling you. There's something to it. I think it's because Taylor has issues with her. She has issues with E followed by the letter D. So it does give more evidence to the spectrum, peeps. And I am on that side of the issue. I do think it is a spectrum. I think it's more similar than different. I really do.
Losing weight was also like a success of friendship. When it doesn't work for you as simple as that, it's almost like you're a failure in your friendship dynamic, which is something that honestly, I don't know if I realized until I just started talking about this part of it. But
so unless if your friends also had the same issue, it likely didn't have that same emotional intensity behind it that you felt, Anna. For you, Anna, it was a more heavy thing. It was something that those failures, it's something within that side of the spectrum, the side that I was on. It's mostly about beating yourself up over failure. That's a huge thing. You almost get addicted to failure. You get addicted to it because it's like a controlled bad thing in your life or a controlled trauma in your life. So it's like, oh my gosh, I failed at this. Oh my gosh, I'm not losing. Oh my God. And then you spin it into like this whole drama, and it becomes this whole story and this whole narrative. And I've done that so many times in my life. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh my God, you know. And I think that is a sign of huge recovery, is I can put some weight back on in December and it's just nothing, you know, because it's not dramatic anymore. It doesn't have that same, oh gosh, it doesn't have that anymore because I'm over it. So it's like, you got to get to that point where it just doesn't, there's no emotion behind it. It's just, it becomes facts. And she's clearly not there. I still don't think she's there. But she clearly wasn't there at the time either. So I don't know how much her friends really saw her as a failure of friendship, or if it was just she beat herself up over it. repeatedly.
Like, I think as we fast forward and I stopped losing weight, I lost about 100 pounds that way just by literally
Okay.
getting active.
So 100 pounds, that's pretty big. I would say it would be okay to plateau for a while or to maintain for a while. You know, I typically time it myself, or I tend to follow the seasonal waves because I'm hypo, or I've been hypo. Like I said, I think it's getting better. So I don't know. We'll see. It seems better. Which, by the way, that's amazing if it's better. But anyways, I've tended to do that because it goes it's working with my thyroid and working with the season. And so, and then I also give my body a break to kind of recalibrate. And every winter, as I've told you guys, it's like it's a crystallization of a set point every winter where it kind of becomes more solid. And then I typically move forward again in the spring. But like I said, with my hypo possibly getting better, that those seasonal grips may not be as drastic. And it was much better this year, I will say, than in previous years. Much better. Even this January, it's a lot better than a year ago. Oh my gosh, I wasn't even posting a year ago. That's how you can see. I was barely even posting last January. I was so sick. And February, I was so sick. But, you know, you can see the proof is in the pudding of me continuing to post and me being so consistent, particularly since April. I would say around that time, I got healthier, and I never had my health never interfered with YouTube after that, which is a huge accomplishment. And that's literal evidence. Y'all can see. You know, I made the decision to go full time in April, and I was able to stick to it, and I still can. I've never had to stop because of my health. And prior to April, I had to a lot. There are a lot of times I'd have to stop or I'd have to really slow down. So just saying, the proof is there. Here we are, right? Here we are.
As part of this Weight Watchers group, and I would go to Soul Cycle with these girls. I would run to Soul Cycle, do 1 to 2 Soul Cycle classes, and run back.
Don't be afraid to stay the same for a while. Let your body recalibrate, and then you can move forward again. That's all. That was the point of that. And if you are hypo, use the seasons as a guide. It helps a lot.
I started walking to work, so I would walk from Brooklyn to Midtown Manhattan, which is about a 4-mile walk, and I would walk there and back. And I started just becoming really, really active. Again, I never was like a binge eater or an overeater, so it kind of was like...
I don't believe her. I think that's total BS. And she's literally said on her video that she has that issue. So she's lying. I think she's a liar. Because she literally said it. I literally have a video on my channel reacting to her talking about how she binges. And you got me all kinds of fucked up, Anna, if you want me to believe that that just started in your 30s or something. That is a crock of bullshit. 100,000% crock. No. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm calling BS on that.
My activity just jumped up, and that's where the weight went. But then it stopped. I had lost...
Yes, a lot of times people that have the disorder, they can go without binging for quite a while, but then they go back to it, usually because of immense stress or because of something traumatic occurring. So it's still there. I myself know it isn't, because I have been through very stressful times and trauma throughout the 4 years that I've been, in remission. I've been triggered multiple times. I literally have called it the tour of triggers last year. I had every single trigger you could possibly have with E followed by the letter D, and I didn't do it once. Never. So I haven't done it since October 2020. I remember the last thing I did is I just had to start knitting. And then I had something to put my nervous energy into, and that was it, because I had done all the other work for 6 years to get out. So that last piece fell into place. By the way, I knitted this, and I've knitted this too. These are two of my things. This is my All Too Well scarf, by the way, for my Swifty girly pups. Girlies and boilies, if there's any boilies that like Taylor as well. I like to include. But I'm not a girl, but I am a girly. Okay, I'm a girly pop. So I'm girly, but I'm not a girl. Okay? Hope that's clear. But anyways, so I knitted this, and I have a lot of other stuff I've knitted, but that was the last thing I needed. I think a lot of times we need to have a kind of tactile hobby, something that engages the senses and something we can do alone. So that was the last piece of the puzzle for me. That's why I remember the last time. And I just stopped after that. And then it was just, when I would eat a lot, it was because I was hungry. And it was always physically based after that. And like I said, even through trials and tribulations of 2024, never relapsed. So it's dead as a doornail. But I still have some issues sometimes. I would consider myself still having a little bit of scars. Last year, they were like really deep purple. In 2023, it was like really raw, extremely raw still. And that's years after engaging in the behavior. I mean, I stopped in 2020. So if it's severe, it can really haunt you for quite a while. But now it's like I have had a couple body dysmorphic episodes, as I have had a lot of weight fluctuation due to swelling and stuff. And it's a little bit disturbing. It's a little hard for me still, but I don't feed into it at all. And obviously there's no effect on my eating behavior. So it's still not EFA by the letter D, but there's still those little things there. And I'm very aware of it. And I fight it. You fight everything, period. So I try not to look in the mirror too much and things like that. I still have to be a little bit mindful of that. Even to this day, it'll be 5 years in October, and I still have to, you know what I'm saying? It's tough, but the biggest way is if the behavior's done. So if you're not doing the behavior, then you're out, and if you're consistently not doing it, then you're out. Now, you may still have tons of anxiety. You may still have tons of other comorbidities. There may be a lot of other problems, but you don't have that anymore. And that's about it. So I will say, though, if you deal with that, then you can deal with the other stuff easier, because I think when you have E followed by the letter D, it makes everything worse. It'll make all of your other comorbidities worse. Like for me, I believe it created my hypothyroidism, as it is damaging to the thyroid and the function, and your thyroid has to recover after it. Remember, it's been 4 years. Still struggling, but I might actually be getting out of it now. So anything is made worse with it. Anything you've got, it's made worse. So you got to get rid of it. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. I'm still good to go for a little bit longer.
Lost weight and gained weight before, but this was very different because I was gaining weight while still maintaining a really healthy lifestyle. So I was still going to spin class, I was still running, I was still eating healthy, I was still walking to and from work. So it didn't make sense that I was gaining weight back.
Were you hungrier? That's my question. Were you hungrier? That would have been the first question. Sorry, I don't know why I'm a little bit burpy, but that would have been the first question I asked her as a co-host. I would have said, do you think you were hungrier? And I think a lot of people, they're taught that you can't, if if you ever say you're hungry, it's a lie or whatever. But I know what that super morbidly obese hunger feels like. It's very powerful. So I do think if somebody is that big, you should believe them, that they are hungry. It's very, very powerful hunger. I have not felt hunger like that ever since I got out. Isn't that crazy? I think I just realized that. The hunger's real. You know, if you're just eating for no reason at all, or just because it's really tied to anxiety, that's E followed by the letter D. But if you're hungry, that's usually hormonal issues. And it can be hormonal issues tied to supermorbid obesity, especially it's felt very, very strongly at that size. So I wonder if that's why. And I would just be like, were you eating more? You know, and I feel like this Dr. Host is not going to ask her those questions. But Anna, it's important for you to say you were. You may have been hungrier, though. It may not have been a spell. It may not have been that kind of a thing. Because once you're in supermorbid obesity, it's a whole other ballgame. And it's not always just your disorder that's making you eat. Sometimes you're really hungry. You're just plain naked hungry. Okay? And I still had, even post E followed by the letter D, there were a lot of times where I was eating a lot of calories in 2021, 2022, you know, like even 2023, like November, I ate a lot in 2023. And I was concerned that I was having a relapse, but I was so hungry. So I was like, no, Alex, like you're really hungry. And in December, my appetite shot back down and I stopped. And I was like, okay, because I had to really reflect on it because I was getting concerned because I was eating that much. But I tell you guys, you know, that's important. Now that hunger fiending moment, it didn't happen this autumn. It never happened. But I was too hungry to continue the deficit. And I probably was in somewhat of a mild surplus, you know, that kind of thing. So anyways, always keep reality. Always keep it. Because you don't want to be like Anna. You don't.
I honestly didn't know what to think. I felt very cheated. I felt very angry because I felt like I did everything right and this is my predicament. So like what the hell? What the hell? And I did.
It may have just been a restrictive phase within an E followed by the letter D. That's probably what it was. And then you're going back to eating a ton because you're really, really hungry. I know that that's not the fun answer. That's not the sexy answer. That's not the mystical answer. That's not the, you know, the reverse Wheel of Fortune tarot reading. I'm not giving you that. I'm just giving you this is what happened. You were probably in a restrictive phase and then you started being again. Because it's that same, she probably was wanting that same euphoria that she felt as a child. From she cuts herself off from certain things, then when you eat them again, it feels really good. And it can last a while. And people don't know that. So there is a physical part to it as well, which you're kind of abusing your brain's like signals to get a balanced diet, basically. It's really horrible, but it's deadly. You know, this stuff is not, it's not light. It's very heavy to talk about because it's deadly to do those kind of games. That slot machine. And that's kind of what she was, I think that's what it was. I think that's what she was doing.
Did start to feel, and I don't think I've ever admitted this to myself until this podcast, which is a little bit wild, but I think I started to isolate myself because I was embarrassed that I...
Yeah. See, this is all E followed by the letter D stuff. Like, there being an emotional outcome due to it, there being a social outcome due to it, there being all these different things, an obsession with it, right? It's that whole drama of it. You become addicted to the drama of the whole thing. And that's really difficult. I had a really hard time in 2023 because I was dealing with coming down from the physical side of not having drama around this issue. And I was so bored. I was so bored. It was so boring. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. I've never been as bored as I was in 2023. I was miserable, but I was bored at the same time, miserably bored, because there's such a come down, because it's like I hadn't played that slot machine with my brain in years, and the brain was starting to restore itself. And in that process of restoration, it was a huge, huge come down, and it was extremely boring. And again, I'm talking from very severe levels of this, and I think she would probably experience the same thing if she actually stopped for, again, a couple years. You have to stop for a long time for physical changes to occur. And the brain has to repair itself from this disorder when it's super severe. And she's talking about that drama. And I remember being so bored. It was horrible. It was so bad. Like, I've talked about a lot of the phases of my recovery. Like, I talked about how it felt like losing a religion. And that was really like the very beginning of it. But I still had to white knuckle it. But by 2023, it was like I wasn't white knuckling it anymore. It was done. It was like the door to it had slammed shut in my brain. And it was starting to recover. And it was like, oh my God, this is really hard. And my appetite went way down. And all these things happened. Like, I think a lot of people in the disorder, they don't understand that if you stop for a while, these sort of natural inhibitions and these sort of natural feelings and stuff, they come back to normal. And you can't just do it anymore. So in my opinion, the relapse rate probably goes down after like a couple years, at least 2 or 3 years after doing it, because your brain changes and you can't do it anymore because you don't have I would get so full in the spring of 2023. I was so full. I was like, I can't eat a lot anymore. I don't have a choice. It's like I can't do it anymore. And I would have felt like I was going to throw up, and I just didn't have this emotional or anxious drive to do it that I did when I broke my brain, in high school or whatever, It takes a lot to actually keep all this stuff up. And I think that I will always talk about how much it is to keep up. It's a lot. And that's why, like I said, when you get extreme with it, you don't even have hobbies or anything. You don't have anything else in your life. It's just that. And that's when a lot of these fat activists are like, all you talk about is your diet. They're projecting because that's how they were. Because it was all still a part of that disorder. There's a lot of layers to it. And just listening to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so clearly this. And the biggest thing is she won't admit she was eating more. I mean, you see, she won't. It's a huge tell. Huge. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to be back. I'm going to film more tomorrow. So, please come back. Please join me on this journey. I do think this is a really good thing for me to cover because, oh my gosh, she's really sparking, conversation and things that need to be said about this and reminding me of stuff. And yeah, I just hope people can be more aware that it's similar to other types. So it needs to be treated the same in a lot of ways. But thank you guys so much for watching, and if you got this far, thank you so much. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. Peace.